Millionaire CEO went on a blind date in disguise. The poor single mom recognized his loneliness. Light snow dusted the sidewalk outside the cafe, glimmering beneath the golden halo of the street lamps. The cold air wrapped the evening. In silence, broken only by the muffled crunch of boots and the occasional hiss of passing tires on slush. Inside, the cafe glowed like a small pocket of warmth, soft jazz playing low, steam rising from ceramic cups, and the rich scent of coffee clinging to every corner. The place was modest but cozy. Wooden beams overhead, a row of frosted windows offered a blurred view of the outside world, like watercolor paintings in motion. Conversations murmured at low volume. Laughter from a nearby table faded into the hum of the espresso machine. At a corner table by the window, a man sat. Alone, Leon Walker looked nothing like the man on magazine covers or tech articles, no tailored suit, no assistant at his side. He wore a plain navy sweater, a black beanie, and scuffed brown boots. Completely unremarkable. That was the point. He checked the time. 6:59 p.m. The app said her name was Elise. They had exchanged 3 short messages. No photos, no bios. The draw was in the anonymity. Genuine connection stripped of status. At least that was the promise. At 7:05, the bell above the cafe door jingled. A tall woman stepped inside, brushing snowflakes off her designer coat. Her lipstick was perfect. Her heels echoed sharply on the floor as she looked around, eyes scanning, calculating. Then they landed on Leon. He stood up. She blinked, her eyes narrowed. "You," she said flatly. Leon offered a hesitant smile. "Hi, I'm." She scoffed loud. "I don't do broke guys." Pathetic. Gasps rippled through the cafe. A spoon clink-egged hard against a saucer. The barista froze mid-burr. The woman turned without another word, her heels clicking a final insult as she disappeared out the door. The bell jingled again, then silence. Leon sat back down slowly, carefully. His shoulders didn't slump, but his jaw tensed. He stared at his coffee, steam rising in idle swirls, no expression on his face, but his fingers curled slightly on the edge of the table. Behind the counter, Ava Blake had seen everything. She stood still, cloth in hand, her apron lightly dusted with flour from the pastries she'd just arranged. Her golden hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, a few strands falling around her face. She didn't speak, didn't move, just watched him. Leon stared out the window. Snowflakes drifted past in silence. And then, quietly, so quiet it might have been too. "No one at all," he said. "Happy birthday to myself." Ava's breath caught. She glanced at the pastry case. One slice of chocolate cake remained. Her fingers moved instinctively, opening the case, placing the slice on a white plate, reaching beneath the counter for a little folded card. She hesitated a second, then wrote carefully, "Everyone deserves a candle. Happy birthday." She added a single small candle, lit it. Then, with practiced calm, she walked over to his table. Leon looked up. His eyes flicked to her face, then to the plate, then back. "This is from the cafe," Ava said gently. "We do surprise birthdays sometimes. I didn't tell anyone it was my birthday. You did not have to." He stared at the candle, then slowly reached out and picked up the card. His thumb ran across the ink as if testing if it were real. Ava didn't linger. She offered him a soft smile, then turned and walked back to the counter. Behind her, Leon sat motionless for a moment. Then he leaned forward, cupped one hand near the flame, and watched it dance in the reflection of his untouched coffee. Leon stared at the flickering candle for a long time. He had not moved to blow it out, nor to eat the cake. The flame danced in the shallow space between them, casting a soft glow on the card beside it. Cross the cafe. Ava finished wiping down a table, then glanced toward him. He was still alone, still silent. She hesitated for a moment, then took off her apron, folded it neatly behind the counter, and walked over. "Mind if I sit?" she asked gently. Leon looked up, caught off guard again, but this time he nodded. Ava slid into the seat across from him. She did not offer pleasantries or try to fill the silence. She just let it breathe. After a moment, Leon broke it himself. You didn't have to do that. You did it anyway. She smiled. I guess I just believe no one should be. Alone on their birthday, Leon's gaze dropped to the plate again. That obvious? You said it out loud. A corner of his mouth curved slightly. Right. He reached forward and finally took a bite. Of the cake, the warmth of the chocolate softened something in his face. Ava noticed it but said nothing. When he looked back at her, his eyes were clearer. You work here full time? He asked. 3 nights a week. The rest of the time I'm with my daughter, Luna. Leon nodded. Pretty name. She's 4, has more energy than 10 grown men. He chuckled under his breath. Ava leaned her elbows on the table, her expression thoughtful. When I was 10, I made myself a birthday card, she said suddenly. Leon blinked. You did? Yep. She reached into the side pocket of her bag and pulled out a faded piece of folded paper, the edges frayed, the ink slightly smudged, but still legible. She placed it gently on the table and opened. It, in crooked handwriting, it read, Happy birthday, Ava. You matter, Leon. Stared at it. You kept it all these years. I never had a real cake or candles growing up, she said softly. I bounced around too much. Foster homes. Couch to couch. But I promised myself if no one else remembered, I would. Leon's gaze dropped to the little card she had written for him, then to the one she wrote for herself all those years ago. Without thinking, his fingers reached out and gently ran along the old crease in the paper. Ava watched him, something soft blooming in her chest. That is why I write birthday notes for strangers. It is silly, I know, but sometimes a small kindness is the only thing someone gets that day. Leon shook his head. It's not silly, he paused. My mother died when I was 13, he said quietly. My father disappeared long before that. I was raised in boarding schools, cold, gray places. You learned quickly not to expect anything, especially not on your birthday. Ava did not interrupt. She only nodded. For years, I pretended it didn't matter. Leon went on, that it was just a day, another day. But today, I do not know. It hit harder than usual. Silence stretched between them. Not awkward, but heavy. Real. Ava stood up. Wait here. She returned moments later with a fresh cup of tea, steam rising in gentle curls. She set it in front of him, and as he reached for it, her hand covered his for just a second. What? Let it burn a little, she said softly. It means you still feel something. Leon froze, his fingers still beneath hers. Then slowly he looked up at her. Their eyes met, and in that quiet moment something shifted. Not pity, not charity, recognition. He let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. Thank you, he said, and this time the words held weight. Eva smiled again. Then stepped back. Enjoy the tea. It's my favorite blend. Leon took the cup in both hands. He did not speak again, but the way he cradled the warmth said enough. He took another look at the candle, now burned down to a stub, and then back to the birthday card. It was the first one he had received in 20 years. The night air was crisp, with only a faint breeze whispering through the trees, snow still lying the edges of the sidewalks, frozen in delicate patches where the sun had not reached. Leon Walker walked aimlessly through the park, hands shoved into his coat pockets, his breath fogging faintly in front of him. Sleep had been distant all week, hovering just out of reach. He had returned to work, read emails nodded in meetings, but his mind had stayed behind. In that small cafe, in the flicker of candlelight, and the quiet sincerity of a stranger who had seen him, really seen him, now he wandered beneath the soft glow of lampposts, his footsteps crunching lightly on the path dusted with frost. A sudden cry pierced the calm, a child's voice, sharp and startled. Leon looked up just in time to see a little girl trip on a loose stone and fall forward onto the pavement near the swings. Without thinking, he jogged forward. Hey, it's okay, he said, kneeling beside her. The girl sat up, sniffled, then looked at him with wide, glassy eyes. Her cheeks were pink from the cold, curls sticking to her forehead under a fuzzy pink hat. A moment later, her eyes widened even more. "I know you," she gasped. "You're Mommy's birthday man," Leon blinked. "I what?" She grinned, showing a gap where one of her baby teeth had just fallen out. "The man from the cafe, the one who got the candle." Leon felt something shift in his chest, a warmth rising despite the chill. Before he could respond, a familiar voice called out, "Luna." Ava rushed over, her boots slipping slightly as she reached them. She dropped to her knees beside her daughter, gently brushing snow off the girl's coat. "I told you not to run so fast ahead, sweetheart." Then she stopped. Her eyes met Leon's. Neither spoke for a heartbeat. Then Luna pointed proudly. "Mommy, look, he caught me before I hit the ground." Ava looked at her daughter, then back at Leon. Her cheeks flushed, not from the cold. "Wow. Twice in 1 week." Leon smiled just a little. "I promise I'm not following you." She laughed softly. "I believe you." Luna tugged at something in her pocket and pulled out a small wrapped candy. She held it out to Leon. "Here," she said. "Mommy says sharing is loving." Leon hesitated, then took the candy gently. "Then I must be lucky." If it watched them for a second, then straightened. "There's a stand near the entrance that sells decent ice cream, believe it or not, even in winter. Want to join us?" Leon looked at her. The question hung between them. Simple, casual, but carrying the quiet weight of something deeper. "I'd like that," he said. 10 minutes later, the three of them sat on a bench near the frozen fountain. Luna had ice cream on her chin, giggling as she swung her feet. Ava leaned slightly toward Leon, relaxed, at ease, and for the first time in a very long time, Leon did not feel like he had to perform. He just was. "You're good with her," Ava said. "I had no idea I would be." Leon replied honestly. Luna nudged him with her elbow. "You're funny and nice, not like Mommy's other dates." Ava's face turned bright red. Leon laughed. The moment hung suspended, sweet, fragile, and unexpectedly full. For the first time in years, Leon felt something startlingly close to belonging. He began with a coloring book. A few days after their encounter at the park, Leon returned to the cafe, not with fanfare, not even with words. Just a quiet entrance, a polite nod, and something tucked beneath his arm. He placed a slim children's coloring book on the edge of the counter, along with a small bundle of crayons wrapped in a ribbon. He said nothing, just gave Ava a smile that barely touched his lips, then settled into his usual seat by the window. Later that evening, when Luna came in after daycare, her eyes lit up. "Mommy, look, it's the sea animals one." She squealed. Ava blinked. Luna had pointed at that exact book weeks ago in a grocery aisle, but Ava hadn't had the money to spare that day. She looked toward Leon's table. He was sipping coffee, looking out the window, pretending not to notice. The next week, another book appeared, then another, each with colors Luna loved: pinks, purples, sea foam greens, always wrapped simply, always left without a word. Ava began to respond in kind. She started setting aside one of his favorite pastries, caramel apple croissants. He had once mentioned off hand. She left them in a plain paper bag on the counter near his table before he arrived. No name, no note. He would walk in, pause briefly at the sight of it, and offer her the softest smile before settling into his seat. They didn't speak much, not about feelings, not about meaning, but with every book left, every pastry given, a thread was spun. One evening, as Ava cleaned up for the night, she found a folded napkin left behind. It had a rough sketch, clumsy, charming, of 3 stick figures holding hands. One had long hair, one short, and a tiny one in the middle with 2 pigtails. Above it was a single word: family. She stared at it for a long time. She did not mention it. She did not react. But the next morning, when she opened the cafe, she taped the drawing to a hidden corner of the wall, just beside the sink, where only she would see it, her private reply. The days blurred into a rhythm. He came in on Tuesdays and Fridays. Luna always asked if the birthday man would be there. Ava stopped calling him customer in her mind. He was something else now, something gentler. Then came the night it rained. It was cold and wet, the kind of sharp spring rain that soaked you through, even if it looked like a drizzle. Eva had stayed late doing inventory. By the time she locked up and stepped outside, her coat was already damp at the shoulders. She pulled her scarf tighter, sighed, and looked down the street. That was when she saw him. Leon stood just outside the awning holding a black umbrella. He wasn't even dressed for the weather, just a light jacket and his usual boots. "What are you doing here?" she asked, stunned. He offered a small shrug, then held the umbrella out. "I didn't want you to walk home in the rain." Ava blinked. Her throat tightened unexpectedly. No one's ever done that. Leon looked at her for a long moment, then simply said, "Now someone has." They walked together under the umbrella in silence. The rain tapped softly above them. Their shoulders brushed once, twice, but neither moved away. When they reached her block, Ava paused. "Thank you," she said, voice low. Leon met her gaze. For what? For not saying too much and for saying everything anyway. He gave a quiet smile. "Good night, Ava. Good night, Leon." As he turned to go, she found herself looking forward to the next Tuesday. Not for the pastries, not even for the coloring books, but for the silence that made her feel seen. The afternoon crowd had thinned, leaving the cafe unusually quiet. Ava stood near the counter, wiping mugs as sunlight streamed pale and cold through the windows. The little drawing Leon had left, the sketch of 3 stick figures holding hands, was taped discreetly in the hidden corner near the sink. It had become her private reminder of the bond forming in her life. That bond shattered a few days later. Ava had finished her shift early and taken Luna to the library. On the way back, she stopped at the crosswalk near Main Street. A sleek black car polished to a mirror shine pulled to the curb. A driver in uniform jumped out and opened the back door, and out stepped Leon. Not the Leon in worn boots and sweaters. This Leon wore a tailored suit, his hair styled, his posture commanding. For a moment, Ava thought she was mistaken, but when he turned slightly, his profile was unmistakable. Her stomach dropped. Tall, elegant woman in navy emerged from the opposite door and moved to stand beside him. She was striking, confident. The kind who belonged in glossy magazines. Leon leaned closer, listening as she spoke, then nodded with businesslike calm. "Mr. Walker," the driver said clearly, "you're meeting with the board is ready." The words hit Ava harder than expected. Mr. Walker. She had only ever known him as Leon, the man with coloring books, with an umbrella in the rain, with clumsy drawings. And yet here he was, Mr. Walker, a man with a driver, a luxury car, and a companion at his side. Her chest tightened. Her first thought was not anger but betrayal. Had it all been a game, a test? Had he hidden his life just to see how she would treat him? Luna tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy, isn't that the birthday man?" Ava pulled her daughter away. "Come on, honey, we need to get home." Her throat ached with unshed words. By the time she tucked Luna into bed, the ache had settled into something heavier. Disappointment. She remembered the napkin sketch, the umbrella, the way he said nothing but still said everything. Now it all felt like fragile glass she had been foolish to hold. The next morning at the cafe, she pulled down the drawing from its hiding spot. For a long moment, she stared at the stick figures beneath the scribbled sun. Her fingers trembled slightly as she peeled the tape away. She folded the paper and tucked it deep into her apron pocket. When Leon arrived later that day with another small bundle for Luna, Ava didn't look up. She handed him his coffee with professional distance. No smile, no warmth. He lingered, waiting, but she turned away. He left without a word. That evening her phone buzzed. The yawned, "Can we talk?" She stared at the screen. Her thumb hovered, but she didn't reply. Another message followed, then another. "Leon, I should have told you the truth. Leon, please don't shut me out. Leon, I didn't mean for you to find out that way." The glow of his words filled the dark kitchen, but she set the phone down. She could not answer, not yet. For the next several days, she kept her distance. When Leon appeared at the cafe, she stayed behind the counter, sending another barista to serve him. When he tried to catch her eye, she busied herself with trays or receipts. Each time his shoulders sank lower. It wasn't anger, it was the sting of trust slipping through her fingers. She had led him into her quiet world, shown him her daughter, her hurts, and now she realized she had been the last to know who he truly was. One evening, after closing, Ava locked the door and turned the chairs onto tables. As she reached for her coat, she noticed an envelope tucked neatly beneath his usual table by the window. Her name was written on the front in careful script. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. I came in disguise because I didn't want to be seen for what I own, only for who I am. But maybe that was still a lie. Maybe hiding is its own kind of deceit. Her eyes stung as she read. She sank into the chair, the letter trembling in her hands. I didn't mean to mislead you. I just wanted for once to meet someone who didn't see a balance sheet. You gave me that, you gave me more. But now I fear I've ruined it. At the bottom, his signature, Leon. She folded the letter carefully, placed it back into the envelope, and sat in the quiet cafe long. After the lights had dimmed, her heart torn between disappointment and the memory of a man who once lit a candle just to watch it burn. The envelope arrived on a Wednesday morning, slipped beneath Ava's apartment door. She found it as she was rushing to get Luna ready for preschool. The return address made her pause. Bright Horizons Academy, the most prestigious early learning school in the city. Ava's brows knit in confusion as she tore it open. Her breath caught as she read, "Congratulations, your daughter, Luna Blake, has been awarded a full scholarship covering tuition and fees in their entirety." At the bottom of the letter, in simple handwriting, a single line had been added. For the girl, who still believes in birthday candles, Ava pressed a hand to her mouth, tears well before she could stop them. She looked at Luna, who was humming while trying to put her shoes on the wrong feet. Her daughter, who made cards for her stuffed animals and insisted on blowing out pretend candles even when there was no cake. Her little girl, who deserves so much more than Ava had ever been able to give. She sat down heavily on the couch, the paper trembling in her hands. Leon, it had to be him. No one else knew, no one else would have written those words. She closed her eyes, the ache in her chest tightening. He had lied, yes, but this was not the act of a man playing games. This was something else entirely. That afternoon, Ava walked toward Leon's corporate office tower, the place she had only ever glimpsed from afar. The glass building rose like a monument against the skyline, gleaming, intimidating. She reached the front steps, stood there for a long moment, and then turned away. She could not face him there, not among suits and polished marble floors. That was his world, not hers. Instead, she returned to the cafe, the place where they had first met, where the candle had flickered between them. The chalkboard by the entrance still stood blank after the morning rush. Ava picked up a piece of white chalk. Her hand hesitated only a second before she began to write, her script looping slowly, carefully to the man who reminded me. Kindness doesn't need names. She set the chalk down, wiped her hand on her apron, and stepped back. The words stared back at her. Quiet and unpretentious, just like him. The evening was slow. A few customers drifted in and out. Ava busied herself behind the counter, but her heart thudded every time the door jingled. And then, just as the sky outside deepened to violet, he appeared. Leon walked in wearing his usual sweater and boots. No suit, no driver, no mask of power, just him. His eyes landed on the chalkboard and he froze. For a moment, he simply stood there, staring at the words. His jaw shifted and he exhaled a breath like someone who had been holding it for days. Slowly, he crossed the room and sat down at his old table. Ava wiped her hands on her apron and walked over. She did not speak at First, instead, she placed a small plate in front of him. On it sat a slice of vanilla cake, a single candle flickering faintly in the warm cafe light. Leon looked at it, then at her. His eyes searched hers, almost afraid to believe. Ava folded her hands, steady but soft. I thought maybe you could use another. Birthday. For a moment, neither moved. The flame danced quietly between them. Then Leon reached forward, resting his hand gently on the table. His voice was low, almost unsteady. You don't know what this means. Ava smiled faintly. Maybe I do. The candle's flame flickered once, and the silence that followed was not heavy this time. It was whole. The cafe had closed for the night, its chairs stacked neatly on tables, the faint smell of roasted beans still clinging to the air. Only one lamp remained lit near the corner, casting a soft circle of warmth around the table. Where Leon sat waiting, his coat hung over the back of the chair, his hands folded loosely in front of him. He looked less like a man of power and more like a man uncertain of what to hold on to. Eva walked out from the back, her apron removed, her hair falling loose around her shoulders. She approached slowly, her steps quiet against the wooden floor. When she reached him, she didn't sit immediately. She studied him for a long moment, as if weighing her own heart. Finally, she lowered herself into the seat across from him. For a while, neither spoke. The silence felt like a fragile glass between them. Easy to break, difficult to repair. Ava was the first to breathe through it. I've already forgiven you, she said softly, long before I understood why you hid who you were. But her eyes searched his face. I still need to know, were you ever going to tell me? Leon leaned back, his jaw tightening. He didn't look away. Honestly, no, I never planned to. Not because I wanted to deceive you, but because I didn't expect to matter to you. I didn't expect you to matter to me. Her brows softened, though the weight in her chest did not lift. Then, what changed? Leon drew in a slow breath. His eyes dropped to the table for a moment, then rose to hers again. That night when you brought me the cake, I wasn't supposed to feel anything. Was supposed to walk away and forget it. But you, he stopped, the words catching. For a moment, you stepped into my life with nothing more than a slice of cake and a candle, and suddenly I couldn't imagine leaving. Ava's lips parted, a quiet tremor in her breath. She held his gaze, searching for the truth in his eyes. What she found there was not polished charm or rehearsed lines, but raw sincerity, stripped bare of everything else. Leon reached into his coat pocket. When his hand came back, he held a small velvet pouch. He set it gently on the table and slid it toward her. Curious, Ava opened it. Inside was a simple silver ring. No diamond, no glittering stone, only a single engraving on the inside of the band. She tilted it under the light and read the words aloud in a whisper. OG-29 found. Her throat tightened. She looked back at him, her eyes glistening. Found. Leon's voice was low, steady, but carried the tremor of something deeper. The day I met you, the day I stopped pretending that birthdays or life didn't matter. The day I found something real. Ava's fingers closed gently around the ring. She let out a small laugh, shaky and tender. You're not making this easy, you know. I don't want it to be easy. Leon said, I just want it to be honest. For a moment, she stared at the ring, the weight of it more symbolic than its simple band could convey. Then she slipped it carefully back into the pouch, holding it close to her chest. Her eyes lifted to his again. You didn't lose me, Leon. Not yet. But the relief that crossed his face was almost boyish, unguarded. He exhaled, leaning forward slightly as if the space between them was no longer as wide. And for the first time since the night of his ruined blind date, Leon Walker smiled, a smile not of a man concealing himself, but of one who had finally been seen. The park was alive with laughter, the crunch of grass underfoot, and the distant sound of children near the swings. A soft breeze scattered early blossoms across the picnic tables. On one of them sat a small cake, its frosting uneven but cheerful, a single candle standing proudly in the center. Leon Walker, now 33, stood beside it with his arm around. Ava, no boardroom, no disguise, just a man in sneakers and a smile that came. Easier these days. Don't peek yet, Luna sang as she skipped toward them, her blonde curls bouncing beneath her sun hat. In her hands was a box taped clumsily and covered in stickers. Leon knelt as she thrust it into his arms. For you, Daddy, the words still startled him. You made this. Open. It, she giggled. Inside were hand-drawn cards, crayon hearts, balloons, and stick figures that looked like the three of them. On top was one in bright colors. Happy birthday, Daddy, Leon's chest tightened. He lifted Luna, kissing the crown of her head. She giggled and clung to him. Thank you, Luna, he whispered. Best gift I've ever had. Ava watched, warmth swelling in her chest. Leon caught her gaze, his smile. Trembling, he set Luna down, then stepped closer to Ava, in a low voice. He said, I didn't just find love, I found family. Her eyes glistened. She touched his cheek, smiling softly. And we found you. Cake time, Luna clapped. They laughed, gathering around the table. Leon sat with Luna on his lap while Ava lit the candle. The small flame flickered in the twilight, glowing bright against the fatting day. Make a wish, Daddy, Luna squealed, bouncing. In his arms, Leon looked at the flame, then at the two faces beside him. The woman who had walked into his loneliness with kindness, and the little girl who had given him the name he never thought he'd earn. He chuckled. I don't need to, Ava nudged him. Still, it's tradition. He closed his eyes, paused, then blew. The candle dimmed, smoke curling into the air. Luna cheered, clapping until her hands turned red. Ava laughed, leaning against Leon's shoulder. For the first time in more than a decade, his birthday wasn't a day to endure. It was a day to celebrate. No parties, no cameras, no speeches. Just three hearts bound by something stronger than wealth. As they cut the cake, laughter echoed softly beneath the trees. Leon looked at Ava and Luna and knew this was the life he had waited for. 3 people, 1 candle, a family. Complete. What began as a lonely birthday had become a journey of healing and love. Leon found the family he never thought he deserved. Ava learned broken beginnings could bloom into something whole, and little Luna gained the daddy she had wished for all along. This is what happens when kindness breaks through loneliness, when love dares to see beyond appearances. If this story touched your heart, imagine how many more lives can be brightened with tales like this. Don't forget to subscribe to Kindness and Love Tales for more stories of hope, healing, and the power of love that transcends every barrier, because sometimes a single candle is enough to light the way.